end, and you've got this missing middle, which I think partly feeds into some of the debates that are going on now in terms of South Africa's middle class struggling with this unequal growth path. But what are the determinants? What are some of the factors that may have fueled and driven this growth trap? And so I'll run through a few of them, and in the paper it elaborates a bit more, but in the main, I take issue with a couple of things. The first is what I call the political economy, the unintended political economy of growth. And the notion here, and it's one really borrowed from work done by the World Bank and others, that unintentionally big business, big government, and big labor, right, have together secured the rents from the society. It's an unintentional thing, but it's almost a path dependency. And I'd just like to read a quote. It's my favorite quote from the study, is that firms, government, and organized labor are locked in a continual, rambunctious public tussle over the distribution of the high rents being generated under the system. And that's essentially the political economy of growth, that somehow we end up in positions where either system creates, or this organized system creates barriers to entry. It could be for firms, it could be barriers to entry for workers, but essentially locks us into a growth path that benefits those in that triangle, the big business, big government, big labor. I must emphasize, this isn't a conspiracy, smoke-filled room type story. It's just a path dependency that I think we're on, which generates this 1% GDP per capita story. The other factor that I think that determines and drives our growth trap is a particular form of industrial policy, which again has a path dependency. If you look at industrial policy decisions, and Professor Stiglitz spoke about this as well, or as a positive outcome, but our industrial policy decisions, in my view, and I'll give a case study a little bit later, is essentially an extension of a minerals energy view of growth. And it's all about beneficiation and not really about employment creation. So if you look for employment creation, it's just one of the attributes of industrial policy. Yet, if you wanted to break the path dependency, one needs to put employment creation at the center of industrial policy. If one looks at investment trends across the sector, across more than the 3-digit, but 4- or 5-digit level for South Africa since '94, you see that there's been an increase in capital investment in capital-intensive sectors and services, and a decline in investment in labor-intensive sectors. So the attributes of this path dependency are very clear in the data, that we have a preference for capital-intensive, large-scale, dominant, large-scale sort of market-dominant projects as opposed to small-scale labor-intensive sectors. So does some of this sort of notion of industrial policy and the political economy decisions live in particular examples? Well, sort of I borrow sort of from Simon Roberts and the UJ team of these good old case study approaches. I'll give a few. In the auto sector, what you find, for example, is that the state has invested more than 10 billion rand in the auto sector. It's resulted in very, very few jobs, right? The elasticity of employment creation in per rand of subsidy in the auto industry is incredibly low. Even if you look at the spillover effects on the auto components sector, it's paltry. So here you've got the bedrock of industrial policy is an investment in a sector that's capital intensive, foreign owned, has few spillover effects, and doesn't create any employment. And yet, there is no decision. Somehow, we can't find a route out of this decision which takes us at least over a 5-6 year period towards a drawing down of that subsidy value towards a more labor-intensive driven subsidy targeting. If one looks at transport, and Joel referred to this in part, what you find if one takes the Transnet's National Ports Authority numbers, right, and this very port that we hear in this city, in Durban, right, bulk and container port charges are between 364 to 800% higher than the global average, depending on which configuration you take. So what you've got immediately, right, and because there's a lack of competition in the market for ports, right, effectively, it's owned by Transnet. What you have is an incredibly high cost of transport for both either the tariffs for the importers or exporters. But there's more to it than that. If one looks at the differentiation in ports between bulk and container charges, What you tend to find is that bulk charges, so for bulk movement of bulk goods, which is mainly natural resources, right, prices are much, much lower than for containers. Containers are the equipment, if you like, that take light manufacturing goods into export markets. So effectively, in that one little sort of pricing, relative pricing system, you've got a bias against the light manufacturing, labor-intensive manufacturer. The city of Cape Town, right, in transport, pursues a subsidy system that is biased against small firms and labor-intensive firms and towards capital-intensive firms. How do they do that? Well, the city of Cape Town has 3 forms of transport. Like most of the major cities, you have a My City bus, which are these really big, expensive buses. You've all seen them, and half the time they're empty. You've got a bus service, right? We've got Gabs in Cape Town, and then you've got the minibus taxis, of course. The city of Cape Town provides a subsidy for a loss-making enterprise, namely the My City bus system, of 110 Rand per passenger. The subsidy for the bus service is 8 Rand per passenger. The bus company is owned by a top 40 company in the Johannesburg Stock Exchange. And the subsidy to minibus taxis, who are small firms, labor-intensive, is 20 cents. So effectively, you've got a path dependency. You've got a subsidy system, right? Or a local government intervention that's targeted towards large companies, capital-intensive projects, away from smaller businesses and arguably, in some cases, even the informal sector. And so my last point is really about state procurement in the sort of minutes or so I have, which is, I think, in most economies, I think even in developed economies, the state is often one of the larger procurers of goods and services. Yet if you look at public sector procurement policy in South Africa, you could argue that especially for low-skilled or lower-skilled services, procurement of services, we again have unintentionally set up barriers to entry for smaller firms, for black-owned micro-enterprises, whether it's through language, forms that are in English but not in other languages, whether it's through setting up requirements for businesses that they can't meet, such as registration and tax and so on, without assistance. We end up perpetuating a system where it's far more likely for the laundry service contract of this province to go to a top 40 JSE company rather than a black-owned set of 100 micro-entrepreneurs who have laundry machines. And so in that process of public sector procurement rules, we've unintentionally created a path dependency towards large firms, capital-intensive firms that are not employment generating. And so in essence, what I want to propose is that South Africa's found itself unintentionally in a growth path which favors capital intensity over labor intensity, the currently endowed to the marginalized, oligopoly to competition, importation ahead of innovation, and heavy manufacturing over light manufacturing. And I think these are the ingredients for a discussion, at least, about how one moves from a growth trap to a more inclusive growth path. Thanks.
Thank you. Our last speaker is Vice Minister Liu.
感谢部长先生为我们主持下午的论坛，同时也感谢以上各位专家学者的精彩演讲。我很荣幸成为今天本次大会最后一个发言人，我将在规定的时间内完成我的讲演。各位女士们、先生们，我想主要围绕中国政府怎么样致力于为市场主体营造公平竞争的市场环境，来谈一些我们的体会和感受。我主要想谈3点。第一点，中国经济转型升级需要不断地强化公平竞争。市场竞争对经济发展的促进作用，在中国30多年的改革开放进程中得到充分体现。中国建立和完善社会主义市场经济的过程，正是使市场竞争在资源配置中 发挥越来越大作用的过程，使中国经济迸发出巨大的发展潜力，实现了平均每年9.7%的高速增长。当然了，经济的高速增长也必然会带来环境资源受到一定的影响所形成的制约，同时呢，也为产业结构，特别是劳动力所形成了一些高成本的付出，出现一些经济发展过程当中需要调整一个周期性的变化。这也就是我们现在常强调的，就是中国经济发展进入了一个新的常态，面临着下行压力增大，也面临着增长的动力转换、环境资源约束加剧等等问题。那么从今年前3季度的指标来看，我们中国国内生产总值同比增长是6.9%，还是处于合理的运行期间，但是稳增长、调结构、促改革、防风险的任务十分繁重，有效应对经济下行挑战，实现经济保持中高速的增长，迈向中高端水平，这是我们所形成的叫双中高的目标。那么实现这个目标呢，关键在于转变经济发展方式，使经济增长由传统的要素驱动、投资驱动转向创新驱动，打造经济发展的新引擎。对此，我们所形成的共识是，必须把发展基点放在创新上，形成促进创新的体制架构，塑造更多依靠创新驱动、更多发挥先发优势的引领型发展。竞争对创新具有根本性的激励作用，公平竞争的环境是孕育创新创造的沃土良田。只有充分发挥竞争机制的作用，才能真正激发社会的创新动力和活力，促进优胜劣汰，推动大众创业、万众创新，最终实现创新驱动发展和经济转型升级。因此，无论是从全面深化改革的必然要求来看，还是适应和引领经济发展的新常态，中国政府都将进一步简政放权，减少对资源的直接配置，为社会和市场留足空间，为公平竞争搭好舞台。只有如此，才能真正使千千万万个市场细胞活跃起来，汇聚成发展的巨大动能。第二点，以积极有效的反垄断执法促进市场公平竞争。公平竞争对经济持续继续发展至关重要，但在现实经济生活中，竞争往往受到各种力量的排斥和限制。这些力量既可能来自企图谋取垄断利润的经营者，也可能来自滥用行政权力的政府部门。因此，需要建立并完善以反垄断法为核心的竞争保护制度，通过积极有效的反垄断执法，预防和制止垄断行为，维护公平竞争的市场秩序，保证竞争对创新和经济增长的促进作用得到充分发挥。我们中国从2008年制定的反垄断法并开始实施，是保护公平竞争的基本法律和有力武器。作为中国3家反垄断执法机构之一，我们国家发展改革委一直坚定不移地推行和实施反垄断法，积极查处各类垄断行为，有力维护公平竞争的市场秩序。于是，我们查处了一系列影响广泛的经营者垄断案件。这些案件涉及到汽车、电信、证券、保险、交通、医药等多个行业，涵盖了横向垄断协议、纵向垄断协议、滥用市场支配地位等多种类型。通过积极有效的执法，不仅维护了市场的公平竞争，保障了消费者的合法权益，对促进技术创新和行业健康发展也发挥了重要作用。 二是大力查处行政垄断行为。相比于经营者垄断行为，行政垄断由于具有强制性，往往具有更为严重的损害后果。我们近年来不断加大对行政垄断行为的查处力度，先后调查并公布了6起滥用行政权力排除限制竞争案件，纠正了地方保护、指定交易、组织经营者实施垄断等违反反垄断法的相关行为，恢复了公平竞争的市场秩序。通过查处行政垄断，清理和废除了妨碍公平竞争的各种规定和做法，促进了统一开放、竞争有序的市场体系建设。在积极开展反垄断执法的同时，我们还高度重视开展竞争宣传和倡导，通过信息公开、组织培训、专题研讨等方式，积极向政府部门、经营者、其他组织和社会公众宣传解读反垄断法有关规定，为市场主体提供明确的法律预期，加强经营者自我合规，营造有利于公平竞争的社会氛围。第3个方面，逐步确立竞争政策的基础性地位。强化市场公平竞争，仅仅依靠个案执法是远远不够的，必须从宏观政策的层面予以保障。随着市场竞争意识的逐步增强和中国反垄断执法的不断深入，竞争政策将在中国经济发展中发挥越来越重要的作用。我们在今年10月份发布了关于推进价格机制改革的若干意见，其中明确强调加强市场价格监管和反垄断执法，逐步确立竞争政策的基础性地位。这对推动竞争政策的有效实施、完善市场经济体系具有十分重大的战略意义。一是推进反垄断执法常态化。随着经济体制改革的不断深入，反垄断执法将成为一项常态性工作。只有保持住高压的执法态势，才能树立执法权威，强化法律威慑，有效地预防和防止垄断行为的发生。同时，要不断完善反垄断法律制度，通过制定相关指南和细则，增强反垄断法的可操作性，推动反垄断执法向精细化、规范化、统一化方向发展。二是尽快实施公平竞争审查制度，在政府有关政策措施出台之前，对其进行竞争审查或评估，防止其排除和限制市场竞争。这是实施竞争政策的重要方式，也是成熟市场经济国家的普遍做法。我们要加快出台公平竞争审查制度，建立统一、透明、有序、规范的市场环境。我们准备按照国家的要求，研究建立符合中国国情的公平竞争审查制度。这一制度的出台将对中国现行行政管理体制产生重大影响，从根本上理顺政府与市场的关系，防止政府对市场的过度干预，保障市场配置资源决定性作用的充分发挥。三是努力培育全社会的竞争文化。中国长期以来是从计划经济向市场经济转型的一个关键性的历史时期。在这个过程当中，原有的计划经济体制下的思维惯性还没有彻底的消除，社会各方面，尤其是政府部门，对竞争机制还缺乏充分的尊重和信任。因此，需要我们进一步加强竞争倡导，让社会广泛接受竞争优于管制、竞争有益经济的基本理念，使维护公平竞争成为人们的自觉行动，培育形成全社会的良好竞争文化。那么，通过这次大会，我们将进一步深化与各国反垄断之间进行国际合作交流，进一步密切与各国反垄断执法机构的关系，增进反垄断领域的理解和互信，共同携手营造公平竞争的市场环境，推动新兴市场国家的经济繁荣发展。我的演讲到此结束，谢谢大家。
Thank you very much. Vice Minister, we've proven one thing, only ministers are disciplined with time. You were the only one who finished your input within. Everybody will agree with me that this is indeed has been a very distinguished panel and raising very fundamental issues, but unfortunately, we have very little time. Because myself, I was very tempted to ask a number of questions, but I'm not going to expect them to answer those questions because I'm quite keen to open to the participants. One question I was very tempted to ask, isn't competition policy a blunt instrument in the light of the nature of our economies today? We're talking about, in the more developed countries, of a knowledge economy and the issue of patents. How does one intervene in that? Of course, maybe Professor Porat is saying we should also be using state procurement to try and intervene. But it's very interesting, it's very clear that competition policy is one very important instrument through which governments can intervene as part of the armory of the fight against inequality in society. Also, the other question in my mind, maybe out of ignorance, can you have an overarching competition policy? Shouldn't one be talking of competition policies in relation to particular sectors of the economy, by virtue of the fact that they are not the same? I suppose the Vice Minister has said it nicely that most of these questions here, and the ones you have, we won't be able to tackle all of them, but they provide very rich material for ongoing engagement within the BRICS countries, as well as beyond. But maybe I'll just allow one round of single question comment, 5 people, and then we allow our panel to respond and conclude. Can I see hands? There's one hand there. Okay, that's one, you're number 1. Where's number 2? Number 2, here. I'm only seeing males. Number 3, there. Any ladies to be numbers 4 and 5? Okay. Any other hand? All right, those 3 hands. Oh, 4. 4 there, that seems to be the last hand. Can you be brief and straight to the point? You can actually pose the question to any panelist or to all the panelists.
Thanks, Minister. Boporo Tedu from a non-profit research organization called TIPS from here in South Africa. I think given the difficulty of new value creation, or rather new wealth creation in our structurally concentrated economy, it seems to be pointing us towards redistribution, and obviously our taxation policy, our industrial policy, our procurement policy are trying to speak to those things. But my question is whether competition has a more direct role in supporting redistribution in that sense. Thank you.
Thank you, that was very exemplary. Where's number 2? Yes.
My name is Bonsitso Mutope. I prefer to be called Mr. P. Thanks. Firstly, in 2006, when we engaged with we had engaged with the Competition Commission in trying to stop the purchase of Vodacom by Vodafone, and the bid didn't go well. Now, the experience out of that was that Vodafone utilized South African banks. It came in with a head that says we are coming with FDI, as an FDI, foreign direct investment, but nevertheless utilized South African banks in the transaction. Now, I think probably my proposal here is that Competition Commission should also investigate whether any transaction by multinationals in the country would be also financed by is it a foreign direct investment or will be financed by South African banks? And if it's going to be financed by South African banks, therefore it's no longer an FDI, because then it denies South Africans the liberty to gain foreign exchange. But secondly, if we want to have growth in this country or in the BRICS community, it's very key and very important that government should give local businesses 100% of procurement. And local businesses should then be able to engage with the BRICS community, nor the international community as companies, I mean BRICS companies or international companies, in terms of providing or supplying that service. In that way, we will be able to leverage from business to business the implementation of what government needs to do or in terms of the project itself. And that will also increase in terms of the employment, because then we will have, as local companies, we'll have the bargaining power, because then we'll have the ultimate rights to engage within multinationals on our terms. But what is happening now is we find that multinationals will be given these projects by government, and we then have to go and beg. And when we beg, the terms and conditions of engagements depends on the multinationals. So my proposal is that government, whether in the particularly in the BRICS, should give local companies, and then local companies should engage. Give them the power to engage. Thank you.
Okay. In fact, it relates to another question, Minister Patel, that has been in my mind. That the BRICS countries, it would be very helpful if they could share experiences of their competition measures or anti-monopoly measures where existing monopolies actually have been broken up. Are there experiences that we have? If not, where we are unable to break them up, what other measures does one do in order to try and promote growth, competition, and so on? In South Africa, I can think of the construction cartels. I can think of the banks. I can think of Sasol, for instance, as well as this issue that is, I'm reminded because this issue about multinationals. Is competition a national or a cross-border, or can it be an overarching BRICS matter and so on? I'm sure that you must have reflected maybe in the other sessions on that. Number 3.
Thanks, Minister. My name is Tammy from Monopolies Holdings, private sector. The gentleman behind us has touched on some of the issues that I was trying to raise. My major concern is also into the interactions between businesses. We've seen a lot of increase and a lot of challenges. Basically, I'll speak on the metal industry, where a lot of metals that have been purchased from, out of countries, particularly from China and so forth. And some companies within South Africa have gone to the point where they had to shut down. My concern is, how will this be probably managed within the BRICS countries? How will competition be properly managed, and those kind of cartels are dealt with in a sufficient manner? Because this also kills the particular industries in South Africa, where these companies have to shut down because the competition it seems to be very high. So basically, my concern would be, how will those issues be managed? Thanks.
Thank you. The last 10, number 4.
Thank you, Minister, for the opportunity. My name is Bielongo Isheloke. I'm a PhD student at Durban University of Technology. Yes.
I thought you were writing an exam at this point in time.
No. My topic of study is exploring the effects of the BRICS partnership on mineral beneficiation in South Africa. And I have a question for Professor Barrett. He seems to have lamented that the industrial policy in South Africa focuses mainly on beneficiation, and those sectors were owned by foreign companies. Professor, do you have any suggestion on how would the industrial policy in South Africa be organized otherwise? That's one question. The other question is to the BRICS, and I see the Vice Minister is there. I would like to know if the BRICS will cater in the future on promoting bottom-up initiatives, whereby the people, ordinary people, come up with initiatives and they are funded or supported by the government, rather than having, like we have today, initiatives coming from the top. Thank you so much.
Okay. I'm making an exception. This is the last hand, very briefly.
Thank you very much. Anja Thiemann from the OECD. I'm Head of Global Relations at the Competition Division. I was quite interested in the point by Professor Borat about the path dependency, and he highlighted a few contrasts that the policies in South Africa seem to favor capital-intensive over labor-intensive policies, oligopoly over small businesses, and so on. Now, I was wondering, not just Professor Borat, but the panel, if they would like to react to, because I thought what was missing was solutions. So what would be the policy solutions to break away from the path dependency? Thank you.
Can I ask for 3 minutes each? Because some of the panelists will miss their flights. Who wants to start? We'll start that side now. Professor Borat?
Thanks. Thank you, Chair. I'll maybe just answer the questions directed at me. So embedded in this idea of industrial policy being having a path dependency, and maybe I'll answer both questions together, is the idea that so the first thing is it's very hard to get information. I've tried, and maybe the research is somewhere there, of the relationship between this subsidy provided, or one round of subsidy provided by the DTI, and employment outcomes, both direct and indirect. And it seems to me that that's a really important starting point, because so for me, it's about creative destruction. It's about breaking that path dependency so that you can think about, in my view, putting employment at the center of industrial policy. So if you decide that that's the route to go, well, the first thing is to figure out, well, based on the subsidy matrix that you have, what are the outcomes for employment that you observe across the different subsidy programs, both direct and indirect. I'm not advocating sort of drilling down to zero overnight for capital-intensive industrial policy programs and so on, but rather to find a way in which you can gradually move towards a more labor-intensive growth path that defines the industrial policy program, which I don't think is presently the case. For example, if you look at the discussions that we've had very recently with the mining industry, there's been an entire task team led by, I think, a few ministers and so on, talking to the mining industry about saving jobs in the mining industry. It's a good thing, right? Food security in the long run is a huge, huge challenge South Africa faces. Agriculture is far more labor intensive, and together with agro-processing, creates a huge number of jobs, far greater than the mining industry. Yet we've got this path dependency towards natural resource, capital intensive, mineral beneficiation type interaction in our policy engagements. Agriculture is nowhere. And it's that sort of change that one needs. So I think that for me would be one important starting point, is to rethink the way in which industrial policy is pursued, and to insist almost as a matter of moving forward that the first port of call in terms of industrial policy decisions would be the number of jobs created. I mean, just very quickly, the second thing is around state procurement. I don't think we thought creatively enough, again, about how to break that that link between state procurement towards large firms. I don't think making it domestic firms is going to be enough. That doesn't guarantee that you're going to get small firms participating in state procurement engagements.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, thank you very much. I think it's a bit of an advantage to come in earlier, because you can select the questions that you are able to respond to and leave the others to the other panelists. I would want to respond to a number of issues that have arisen, but which relate to matters of principle. What are the fundamental challenges that we seek to address? Is it to eliminate monopolies, or is it to eliminate monopoly behavior? Is it to eliminate market dominance, or is it to ensure that market dominance is not abused? Because I think if we have clarified our mind on that issue, we might then come to the conclusion that the mere existence of a monopoly is not necessarily a bad thing. It depends on how it behaves. I'm raising this issue because it would also relate to questions that have been raised about national champions, challenges of cartels, and how this would relate to, say, minerals beneficiation. Very briefly, just to cite an example from what our research institute is doing. South Africa has got 80% of the world's reserves of platinum group metals, and yet South Africa is a price taker insofar as PGMs are concerned. So the question has arisen, shouldn't we be thinking about establishing a PGM exchange? Not so much to impose pricing, but to find ways of smoothing out the prices of platinum group metals. But the mining companies are expressing serious concern in that regard, because they are saying the Competitions Commission will come to us and say we are in fact going into collusion. So the question also arises, can you undertake competitions policy or implement it in such a way that you undermine, should I call it the national interest or even broader social welfare? Maybe let me stop there. There are other issues that one could have responded to.
Thanks.
Thank you very much. Briefly, 3 points. I will start from the question which was raised about whether competition is a necessary tool to redistribute. I think it's that competition in the proper environment, and I take what Professor Stiglitz said, that competition can be destructive, and I made the same point in different ways. But in the proper environment, competition is a necessary tool to have as much as possible, possibly to redistribute. Whether it's a direct tool of redistribution, it's more incidental. There is a mindset of looking at competition policy, looking at competition law enforcement with the idea of trying to make it work for the inclusive growth. It's not spontaneous, but it can be used. Is it the most blunt instrument? Probably not. But since it's an instrument that is used, it should be used. From that point of view, procurement policy is extremely important for both allocative reasons and redistribution reasons. In most countries, as has been said, procurement markets represent a very large part of GDP and serve to procure what will become public infrastructure. People who are poor tend to use public infrastructure more than people who have private means to replace them by their own cars, their own means of transportation, and so on and so forth. So in ensuring that competition prevails in public procurement, one can have not only an allocative efficiency effect, but also a redistributive effect by making sure that we have as much public infrastructure as possible as required by poor people. On the minister's question, do we have example of what happens to monopolies once they have stopped being monopolies? Just a word of caution. If I take telecom, I can give you, depending on the country we talk about, an equal number of great success, lower charges, competition sets in and progress, and private monopolies which have not led anywhere. So examples depend on whether the opening up to competition, the deregulation, was properly done. And this leads to a whole set of other questions, maybe for another debate. But comparisons is not reason. Sometimes it can be misleading.
So first, let me answer the question about the role of competition policy and distribution. One of the language that we've been talking about increasingly is the distinction between pre-distribution and redistribution. The effects, the determinants of the before tax and transfer income and the after tax and transfer. And competition policy and enforcement can play a very important role in affecting the distribution of income before taxes and transfers. When you have a monopoly and it raises prices, it lowers real wages for ordinary citizens. And when you have a monopsony that lowers wages, it obviously increases typically inequality. So to me, I view it's only one instrument, and it's not the only instrument, but it's an important instrument for affecting the distribution of income. There's a second aspect that I mentioned very briefly, which is the role of opportunity. That when you have a monopoly that is exclusionary, it reduces the opportunity for people to enter a new business. And opportunity is itself an important concept when we're talking about equality. So particularly when there's exclusionary monopolies, I think that's very important. The second general answer I want to give to the question about legacies and inherited oligopolies. One way to think about that is they have an advantage because they've already sunk costs. And what we know is that with even epsilon sunk costs is an effective entry barrier. So what one wants to address is the following. There are natural entry barriers, but we shouldn't allow companies to amplify those natural market barriers. So I think it's very important to have strong policies against predatory pricing, which is actually very common. You know, a firm enters, prices get down, then it gets pushed out and they go up. I think there needs to be very strong policies against restraints, anti-competitive restraints, and a presumption that when there is limited competition in a market that those restraints are anti-competitive. And on the other side, I think there needs to be a positive agenda on the part of the government to overcome those entry barriers, those natural entry barriers, both through a direction of support, including through government procurement. And I very strongly agree that this is an underutilized tool for leveling the playing field, particularly given historical barriers. And finally, I can't help but try to respond to the question that was posed. Are we concerned about eliminating monopolistic behavior or eliminating monopolies? Now, I think the worst part is monopoly behavior, and that's why I suggested there should be actually strong action against excessive pricing, anti-competitive restraints, all those kinds of things, exclusionary behavior. But because I think it's so difficult to stop monopolies from behaving monopolistically, I think in the end you have to actually go after the structural issues, except when you have some strong argument. So in my mind, first to be monopolistic behavior, but in the end, I think you have to go after the structural problems and the existence of monopolies themselves.
Okay, Vice Minister? You don't want to say anything?
这样，这个理论问题，刚才几位专家学者谈了很多，我不想谈。那么刚才有一位提问者是一家私营矿业公司的先生，他提到其中如果我没有理解错的话，是这么个含义，就是 由于目前这个南非它是一个矿产资源丰富的地区，那么有些外国公司，包括中国公司来了之后呢，可能会导致一些当地企业的倒闭啊等等。那么我想就这个问题呢，谈点我个人的一些看法。这个感同身受，因为同样都是我们新兴市场发展国家，中国的经济呢也都经历过这样一个过程。30年前中国开始改革开放的时候，向国际上各个先进发达的国家，这个提出了加强合知合作这样一个愿望。但是当时人们有一个很单纯的想法，就是希望西方国家来给我提供你的技术、你的设备，但是我也要保护我本国的企业能够健康的发展。但是实践证明，中国农民有一句俗话，就甘蔗没有两头甜，是吧？这个我们在保护的过程当中，实际上呢，还是没有学到真正的东西，是吧？那么经过这30年的发展，中国有很多的发达国家通过技术设备和我们共同的合作，使本国的工业也发生了一个很大的变化。那么现在有些技术设备也走向了其他的国家，这就是一个过程，也是一个痛苦的过程，也是一个奋斗的过程。那么现在中国和非洲之间呢，相互之间有很多的这方面的协作，包括基础的公共设施啊、工业产品啊、技术合作呀，是吧？这里面我想可能有这么几个方面需要注意的，就是竞争肯定是市场经济发展一个基本原则。在这个过程当中呢，我们共同要遵守国际上所确定的一些基本的原则，比如说 WTO 啊等等。但是同时呢，双方之间，比如说中国政府和南非政府，或者和其他非洲国家的政府，在平等合作的基础之上，会有一些倾向性的意见，你需要什么样的技术，需要什么样的合作，同时呢，股权分配等等利润，都可以来坐下来谈，在这个过程当中，我们将会按照中国对外开放的一种基本的精神，就是互相共赢，走向一个市场经济的发达，同时按照我们国家现在提出的一带一路的精神，和非洲的，特别是我们南非的各个方面来进行忠诚的合作，使双方都能达到互惠的一个结果。这就是我想说的，我的想法和意见。谢谢。
Thank you very much. 30 seconds.
In 30 seconds, one sentence. There was an issue that was raised about investments and takeovers and whether there is an inflow of foreign capital. I thought because I might not get an opportunity where the competition authorities are here, I should raise this issue. Because the question does arise. Let's take InBev and SAB Miller now. Wouldn't there be some positive in an interaction between the Competitions Commission and the South African Reserve Bank to consider whether the inflow of foreign currency should not be one of the conditionalities to the sale? Thanks.
Okay. That's an important question. Also, I think the other issue that has arisen, it's not just competition, but also we need to look at a slightly different issue of how do you regulate monopolies. That it's an issue in itself that we need to be looking into. Can we please give this panel the last round of applause for their wonderful inputs and engagements. And once more, let me also congratulate Minister Patel and his colleagues for convening this and for the honor to actually be asked to chair this session. Apologies to the next session. We've eaten a little bit into your time, but I think everyone was here realized that we tried our best, and this was also a very important matter. So I hand over now to the next chairperson, and I'm sure we are all released.
And Zimande for chairing that very stimulating discussion. I'm now going to call upon Commissioner Thembinkosi Bonagele to present the joint statement agreed amongst the BRICS member authorities.
Let me also join Wendy in thanking Minister Nzimande and all the panelists for our closing sessions. I also would like to acknowledge the presence of the Premier of KwaZulu-Natal, Senzo Mchunu, and thank you, sir, for joining us. I'm going to read a declaration that has just been signed at lunchtime by the BRICS heads of delegates. We, the heads of competition authorities of the Federal Republic of Brazil, the Russian Federation, the Republic of India, the People's Republic of China, and the Republic of South Africa, at a meeting on 13 November 2015, during the 4th BRICS International Competition Conference in Durban, South Africa, which was held under the theme Competition and Inclusive Growth, recognizing as set out in the UFA Declaration of 9 July 2015, that as BRICS countries are emerging markets and developing economies which face similar challenges, it is important to continue in our joint efforts aimed at improving competition laws and policy enforcement in order to achieve growth in our economies and the protection of consumers. Acknowledging that dialogue amongst BRICS countries in the field of competition policy enforcement based on mutual respect and trust is essential. Further recognizing that effective competition policy enforcement by the BRICS countries requires, in the context of economic globalization, strengthening of the cooperation and coordination between the BRICS competition authorities. Agreed to conclude the Memorandum of Understanding in the field of competition policy in order to strengthen the cooperation and coordination between the BRICS competition authorities. Agreed to activate under the proposed Memorandum of Understanding to strengthen such cooperation through the sharing of best practices in respect of laws, rules, and policies, joint participation in capacity building initiatives such as conferences and seminars, and the conduct of joint studies and coordination in enforcement proceedings. Thank you very much, signed by all the BRICS competition authorities. As we conclude the conference, I would now like to invite the head representative of Brazil, who is the next host for our conference. Good luck. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll need it. Good afternoon to everyone, ministers, vice ministers, heads of agencies, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, please allow me to thank in a very special way our South African colleagues for hosting this outstanding international conference. I do this in the person of Commissioner Thembinkosi Bonakeli, head of South African Competition Commission, also Chairman Norman Manoin, head of the Competition Tribunal in South Africa. I extend this thank to all their staffs and teams. I see Alex here and all the international team as well. We had many extremely interesting discussions in these last days, in addition to side meetings and social events that certainly add value to this wonderful event. Once again, the bar has been raised, which makes our lives in Brazil even more difficult than it was already before. It is impressive how this international gathering amongst BRICS countries has developed quickly and strongly in the past few years. Only 6 years ago, 2009, BRICS Competition Authority met in Russia, then in China, India, and now South Africa. It is the time to turn to Brazil to complete this cycle, and at the same time, we hope to serve as a starting point for a new cycle of international competition conferences. In a way, we try to fulfill our role as the letter B in BRICS. This relatively short time, 2009, 2011, 13, 15, and very soon 2017 in Brazil, shows consistency, focus, effectiveness, and a real commitment of BRICS countries to competition as a public policy. It is clear the benefits of competition to the well-functioning of markets and to the consumer protection. It is also clear that competition policy plays an important interplay with other public policies such as development, inequality, innovation, inclusive growth, and social issues in general. I believe this is a very important message to be sent in this forum. Competition policy should be connected and not disconnected to other public policies. In this sense, competition is also an instrument to the implementation of other public policies, in particular for key economies such as the ones present in BRICS countries. This year, we also had the privilege of signing a joint declaration and completing an important round of negotiations in the terms of a multilateral memorandum of understanding between all BRICS competition authorities that sets up an institutional partnership through a general framework for cooperation. This means the activation of a permanent platform for international cooperation, including this international conference every 2 years, but also a non-stop flow of exchanges, studies, and joint work. It is with this purpose in mind that I intend to kick off the planning of the next BRICS International Competition Conference. It is an honor for me to make this public announcement that CAGI Brazil, our competition authority, will be hosting the 5th BRICS International Competition Conference in 2017. And I truly hope to have the chance of seeing all of you again at this occasion. Thank you very much. Have a safe trip back home. And once again, thank you for the hospitality and for the organization of this event.
The chairperson of the tribunal, Norman Manoyem, is going to give a vote of thanks. Norman?
Thank you. There's a famous English writer of the 18th century called Dr. Samuel Johnson, who invented the first English dictionary. And a young writer came up to him one day and he said, "Sir, I'd like you to look at my work." Dr. Johnson looked at his work, and a week later the young writer came back to him and said, "Dr. Johnson, what did you think of my work?" And Dr. Johnson said, "Your work, young man, is both good and original." The young man was delighted. Here was this great man of letters saying he was original and good. But Dr. Johnson went on. He said, "The problem, sir, is that the original parts are not good and the good parts are not original. And somehow I think the message of this conference is to actually turn Dr. Johnson around, because we're looking at competition policy which is good because it's considered not to be original, and we're questioning that. And we're looking at competition policy that we would like to develop that is original and other people are saying is not good, and we want to question that as well. And that seems to me the take-home message of this conference is to rethink and come up with new ideas. How we do it and how soon we will do it will be the challenge that lies between this conference and the next one we have in Brazil. But thank you to all of you for contributing to that kind of thinking and the excitement that it's generated about these new ideas. May that excitement continue. May I then finish by thanking all the people who've put these 4 days together, because it hasn't just been the 2 days of the official BRICS conference. There have been 2 other days of competition conferences that we've enjoyed here in Durban, in this hall. Firstly, let me thank those from our various levels of government who've helped us make this conference what it is by giving of their time or of their assistance, and as well from their pockets. Firstly, if I can thank our line minister, Minister of Economic Development, Ibrahim Patel. Thank you, Minister, for all you've done to support us through this conference and for the inspiring addresses that you've given us both yesterday and last night as well. Thank you, too, to your Deputy Minister, Minister Masuku, who's been here throughout the conference, attending very diligently as a delegate, once again through your support. Thank you very much. May I then thank as well the Minister of Higher Education, Blade Nzimandi, who took the time off from his busy challenges that he faces at the moment to chair an incredibly good panel that we heard this afternoon. Then may I thank the leaders of this province. And if I may start off, and we're very pleased to have with us this afternoon again the Premier. And Premier, you couldn't have been with us last night, unfortunately, for the function that your province generously hosted for us. And we as the Competition Authority, since this is our business to look at competition, have awarded KwaZulu-Natal the province that can put on the best party ever, much better than the other 8 provinces. So thank you. It was a wonderful evening. May I thank as well your deputy, your MEC for Economic Affairs, Michael Mbayakulu, as well for his participation and his assistance. Then too, the mayor of this city, who has assisted us with both a cocktail function and supporting us in every other way, Councillor James Nkambala, for his support. We were very pleased to have as well with us members of our legislature, the chairperson of our Portfolio Committee on Economic Development, the Honourable Coleman, was with us for much of this time, as were members of her committee. Thank you for being here and learning about what we are doing and sharing it with us. Then may I say thanks to the delegates who've been here today. May I say thanks to the BRICS competition authorities led by, from Brazil, from Paulo de Silveira from CAGI, from Russia, Igor Temiev from FAS, SL Bunker from the Competition Commission of India, from our 3 Chinese authorities respectively, Liu Xiaobin, Liu Junchen, and Shan Ming. To also remember our members of the judiciary who attended here. We're very pleased to have had with us also throughout these proceedings. We had the honour of our former Chief Justice, who now heads our health inquiry. It gives great gravitas to that council to have you there. Thank you very much, former Chief Justice Nyoba. To our Judge President of the Appeal Court, Dennis Davis, and Judge Rogers from the Appeal Court, who also attended. Then thanks to all of you who spoke at this conference. We had a tremendous array of speakers, both from our authorities, from business, from academia, from NGOs, who've contributed to make this conference what it is. Thank you for all of you who've come across all over the world. There are people who've come from every single continent of this world to be here. So it's far wider than just our BRICS family, far wider than even just our African family. We've had people from all parts of Asia, Australia, South America being with us as well as Europe. And the United States, should I say. As I look upon the American delegates who are saying, remember us, we were in the room, and you certainly were in the room, and we've got great contributions from you as well. Finally, I must thank those who put the show together. The conference center put on a great effort for us and have held us together. We thank you, we thank our service company staff. But then there's a final category of people who need a special lot of thanks. And these are the people who've been working for, I don't know, it's probably more than a year to put the show on. They've been led ably by my colleague and head of my sister agency, Thembinkosi Bonakeli. Now, Mr. Bonakeli said last night that he is not a dancer. He may not be a dancer, but he's a great dancing master. Because what he's done is he's got his staff dancing for the last year to get this together. And so he had people who did the samba, who did the foxtrot, who did the waltz, any kind of dance or any kind of fancy footwork that was required that needed to do this. And a huge number of people from the Commission have contributed to making this what it is. I'm only going to mention a few names, and I'm being unfair to people whose names are not being mentioned, but these are the names that I've been given in the short period of time just to thank you in particular for what you've done. So firstly, to Deputy Commissioner Hardin Ratchasusu, to Liberty Nube, our chief economist, to Wendy Ndlovu, who's been our MC all this time, to people who've worked behind the scenes and you haven't always seen visibly, Idebekeng Plenary, Alex Kun, Yongi, who is our young man with a ponytail who met you at the airport and has been all over the show putting these things together. These are just some of the people who've put together the show, and they've done a tremendous job. Could we all please give them a round of applause? And if I could ask those people on the Commission who've done this work just to stand up, and we can acknowledge you as you stand up. Please, all of you who've been working on the thing, please stand up and we can acknowledge you even more. Thank you very much. You've done a tremendous job, and it's been our pleasure as South Africans to host all of you. We hope to see you again in this country to enjoy what you've done in this country, and to echo what the Premier and the Mayor have said to you beforehand. Please come again to this country. You don't have to just come here and work. Please come and enjoy our country, and we wish you all a safe journey home. Thank you for your contribution. Bye-bye.